Welcome back to Brick Gaming YGO. I'm back here today to talk about a GOAT format deck. And I've been getting GOAT format a bit more here and there, been really enjoying it, and been playing a lot more of it. So this is a kind of interesting deck. It's basically a GOAT control deck, but a little bit different with a little bit more of a Monarch package and some other interesting choices. But before I get into it, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, I would recommend it. It would be pretty cool. And I got content coming out every once in a while. Anyways, let's get straight into this deck profile. So, first off, I've got obviously the one Blackluster Soldier. It just is a really great card. Does what you want to do. It's one of the most busted monsters in GOAT format, if not the most busted. So if you can fit into a deck, it's just kind of worth playing. Next up, I play one Mobius. Mobius is just a solid card. It gets rid of back row. The deck does or can struggle with back row, so just playing one in the main deck isn't too bad. And then for the other ones, I play just two Zaborg. The reason I play Zaborg is because good out to monsters, as well as a light monster, so it makes it a little bit easier to go into BLS. Kind of, sometimes it just depends, but overall it's a pretty decent card, and pretty good. I kind of like the Monarchs. I think they just do good stuff. Next up is two Mystic Tomato. Mystic Tomato is pretty solid, just a great generic grab for dark monsters, and then one Sangan. Sangan is also a pretty solid card. It's pretty good. This card will later go on and get banned, but in GOAT format it was still legal, and it definitely puts in a lot of work. Just searches for anything good to reborn it and then tribute off our Monarch, all that type of fun stuff. Then play two Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer. Just a really solid card. Prevents your opponent from doing chaos stuff, as well as gets rid of resources out of their grave. So that's pretty nice. It's a good resource management card and a good beat stick. Then of course, one copy of Breaker, just a really good one of. Really, if you can put it in your GOAT deck, it's just worth playing just because it's so good and very generic. Then play one copy of DD Warrior Lady. Pretty solid card. Good removal, good out to a lot of different stuff. Also light monsters that can come up here and there. One Exiled Force, really good removal. Distribute off, pop monster, get off the board. Pretty nice card. Then one copy of Tribe Infecting Virus. This card is just a classic. Discard to get rid of a certain type of monster, and then it's gone. So I mean that's pretty good. Pretty nice all around. Then I've got two copies of Magician of Faith. Magician of Faith, just really solid, good card for resource management, get stuff back from the grave, especially since you do play a lot of one-ofs in these decks, even for spells. Just being able to get that back that one-of, like let's say Pile Greed, Graceful Charity, whoever it may be, it can just definitely really turn the duel around. Just really good, pretty nice, pretty solid. Then play one copy of Sinister Serpent. Sinister Serpent is also another really nice card. This card is great for hand advantage, hand resources, and you can use it off of Metamorphosis if it does come up. Same with Magician of Faith, but I would say it comes up more with Sinister Serpent, even though it doesn't happen too often. When it does happen, it isn't too bad. Then one copy of Spirit Reaper, really solid stall card. Just a good card, to be honest. And then if you're also like still go on life points and your opponent's either low on life points or they have a lot of cards in their hand, you can just start ripping their cards. So pretty nice. And then finally for the monsters, one copy of Cyberstein. I was a little bit adverse to playing this card at first just because it is a 5,000 life point cost, and life point resources definitely matter a lot in this format. Like once you get below like a certain point, it becomes really hard to do a lot of stuff, but I think Cyberstein is just worth it because it does allow you to OTK very quickly, and those OTKs can just cement an easy win sometimes, and then also prevent a grind game or anything like that, where this deck, it can grind alright, but just being able to hit your opponent for game early on, that's just nice. One copy of Pot of Greed. because you can only play one copy of Graceful Charity, because you can only play one, and to finish up the, you could say, trifecta, is Delinquent Duo, because you can only play one. All these cards are super busted. Like, these cards are insane. You just do, if you see even like one of these, you can definitely get a lot of advantage. It doesn't guarantee a win, but definitely makes it a lot easier to win in the duel. It makes it a lot easier to like keep resources going and just see more of your deck or prevent your opponent from playing. Then I play 2 Scapegoat. This is kind of like where kind of a little bit of that goat control type of idea comes in. Really, the idea behind this is like, I've seen Monarch builds before, and Monarch builds are super cool, and you can do well with them. But they're very aggro, and your opponent, there's a reason like this deck, like Monarchs, don't top too often for goat format type stuff. It's just because people really know how to play around them. There's not a huge player base on them. That's another kind of a little bit of a problem. And then also deck, usually in my experience, you have to win at least like in the early to mid game, and kind of just playing like the more goat control type cards allow for a little bit more of a grind game where this deck can grind a bit more. Then I play 2 copies of Metamorphosis. I keep the package small. You don't need more. You can get stuff back from Magician of Faith. And then you're not like making your extra deck guides all the time. You only make them when you need them. Okay. Then for the rest of the spells, I play 2 Noblemen. Nobleman is just a really solid card. Double Book of Moon. Book of Moon is another just really solid card in this format. It can be used both as mainly as a defensive card. We can also use it as an offensive card, or even pair it with Nobleman, which can come up here and there, but usually doesn't. But when it does, it can be nice. It can be good. 1 copy of Snatch Steal. Snatch Steal just really solid. This card just takes one of your opponent's monsters. And then also, to kind of go with a similar type of card, 1 Brain Control or Mind Control. I forget which one it is. It's Brain Control. I'm bad with names. Names are hard, especially when it's like in a different language. It's like, oh man, how do I say names? But no, these 2 cards are really good. You can pair them off with your Monarchs. Just steal your opponent's cards. Use them if you want to, or just tribute them off. Kind of nice. Kind of good. Then 1 copy of Premature Burial. 1 copy of Last Will. It's worth it because you're going to be able to get enough tributes off, or use like Metamorphosis to trigger this card. You can just trigger this card relatively easy in this deck. So Last Will, I feel like, is definitely a worthwhile card. 1 copy of Heavy Storm. Heavy Storm is pretty nice. It's a pretty nice card. Clearing the back row, always good. Deck, again, back row matchups can definitely be challenges. It just depends, of course, on what your opponent's playing, all that type of stuff. But yeah, then for the traps, 2 Trap Dust Shoots. Trap Dust Shoot is just a solid card. It gives you a lot of knowledge, and if you use this card at the right time in the right situation, it can definitely help really cement where you're at. Also, if you go first and you have this card plus Delinquent Deal, it doesn't happen too often, but if you do, that's really nice because you're ripping your opponent's hand for a lot of cards. So you take away 2, they're down to 3 cards in the hand, then they draw for turn. Then you can rip another one if you want to, or wait and see what they do and then rip. Usually you'll have to fire this card off immediately, but again, depends on the matchup. Always just depends. Then 1 copy of Ring of Destruction, just a really good card, very solid all around. Not too much to say about this card. Great way to go for draws, and great way to go for wins. Just get that little bit of extra damage in, and boom, you're there. Then 1 not Call by the Grave. Jeez, that card wasn't even around yet. 1 Call of the Haunted. This card's pretty good. Pretty nice. Again, kind of like what you're doing with Premature Burial or Snatch Steal. A lot of times you'll be able to tribute off, but there's also a lot of utility you can get off of whatever monster you bring back, depending on what it is. So yeah, just a good card all around. Then finally for the traps, 1 Torrential and 1 Mirror Force. Pretty decent cards. Pretty alright. Mirror Force can be cool. A lot of times it will get popped, but if you play it right, you can get the card to resolve. Same with Torrential. If you can get the card to resolve, it's really good. Or if you brick, this card can definitely keep you in the game for a little bit longer. Next one, we're just going to do some extra deck recommendations and then move into side deck. So yeah, we got in GOAT format. There isn't really a limit on your extra deck, and because there are so many options for extra deck, I'm just going to be talking about the main ones that I go into for this deck, and the ones that, kind of like what I play or prefer to play for this deck. So first off, 1,000 Eyes Restrict. I would say at least 2. 3 is good, 2 is good, but I would usually just maximize again. It just makes sense to maximize on these cards, but 1,000 Eyes Restrict, just a solid card. Usually for me, 1 Dark Blade, but you can of course always play more. You can play pretty much whatever you want in the extra deck. But Dark Blade is pretty nice. It's a pretty cool card. Kind of is like similar to Kaiku, but I would say a little bit weaker on overall effect, but depending on what you're playing against, it could be way stronger since it does hit 3 when it does battle damage, and it does have a little bit more attack. Then I play 1 Ryu Senshi, just a really good card, very solid. And then of course the 1 Master of Oz. I mean, for this you can play a bunch of other stuff of course, but these are the main ones I usually go into, so yeah, those are ones I feel like are most notable. Then for the side deck, my side deck is a little bit different, but I feel like, if your opponent, like game 1, if your opponent feels like you're just straight up on GOAT control, they can definitely play around what you're playing, and I think like having just a lot of versatility in the side deck is really important. So for that reason, I play triple King Tiger Wangu. I hope I'm saying, is it Wangu? Whatever it is, King Tiger. Pretty good card. The card just allows you to sit on a body for a while, and of course you can either slide out some of your weaker guys, or you can slide out some of the cards that don't matter as much, but like a mirror match or similar match. Definitely a pretty good card, especially against smaller monsters. Then 1 Asura Priest. Would never main deck this card. But I don't feel like GOAT control. There are not enough people really playing it, I would say. Most of the time you're going to see a lot of Chaos Control, a lot of Chaos Turbo. That's why I see a lot of. But this card is still pretty solid. I mean, you go up against that 1 off matchup, and just playing this 1 of is good. Also, it's another light monster, so another potential light target engrave. So yeah, altogether pretty decent. Then I side also the second Mobius. Mobius just can be really good. I feel like main decking 1 is solid, and side decking a second copy is also solid. And then finally for the monsters I side deck, 1 Mystic Swordsman level 2. Again, just against any deck that sets or anything like that can be really good. It can be really strong against Pac-Man or stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like this card's worthwhile to play, and it was a worthwhile option. Then for the spells, I keep it pretty simple. Lightning Vortex, pretty decent card. And also, I know that I'm kind of doing something a little bit weird by playing 3 of those inside deck, but I guess that's just kind of the modern Yu-Gi-Oh influence I kind of see, is where maximizing on a really powerful card or a really strong card is kind of what you want to go for, at least with modern Yu-Gi-Oh. So I kind of take a little bit of that idea and bring it over into GOAT format. Could be wrong, could be right, but it's just kind of an idea that I was playing around with. Maximizing on 3-Os. And that's also with cards at 3. Obviously you won't want to play cards that aren't 3 at more than that, because otherwise, hey, that's kind of breaking the rules. But 1 Mystical Space Typhoon, just more back removal, and then the 1 Mystic Walk Burn versus the Burn matchup. I think there's also some other cards you could play against the Burn matchup. However, I haven't really played. Well, I've played against it before, but I haven't played against it enough where I feel like I need more. If I ever play or ever do kind of more in-person type of stuff for GOAT format tournaments or anything like that, then I feel like it would be more worthwhile to play maybe a little bit of a different side deck, or kind of maximize a little bit more on the burn stuff. It just depends. Just kind of going off of what I play against and what I kind of consider, the ratio that I'm considering. Then I play triple Royal Decree. Honestly, in this deck, the trap stuff, playing traps are nice, but I think just playing Royal Decree can also just be really solid in this deck, because you don't rely too heavily on the traps in this deck. If you're running against something more trap heavy, Royal Decree is just worth it. Cut out some of your traps maybe, or cut out some of the cards that you don't need in those matchups, and boom, you have a really powerful card. Then I play 2 Regeki Break. I kind of like this card. I don't know how I feel about it completely in the side deck yet, but I feel like it's actually pretty decent overall. Just discard a pop one, and also go back and forth with Wing Blast, and kind of just go back and forth on those two cards. But I feel like Right Get Break is pretty nice. I feel like it's a pretty good card, but Wing Blast could also kind of be in its place depending on how the meta is or how game is going, whichever one seems to be the better option. Right now I'm just going to stick with Forget Break, but that could change in the future. And then finally, one Dust Tornado, just more back row removal. I feel like this deck, one of the biggest challenges is back row, kind of with the play style, kind of against what you're playing against a lot of times. It's just good just to have a bunch of stuff that can deal with back row, especially since there isn't too much, I would say, in the main deck. The main deck is just a lot more meant for monster removal and then some spell and trap removal, but I guess it just depends on how you look at it. Anyways, that's the deck. That's what I've come up with. If anyone has any suggestions, ideas, anything like that, hey, I'm open to ideas. I'm kind of newish to this format, not super new, but kind of. So, still learning, still getting into it, and still trying to improve at the game. So if you guys liked the video, if you guys liked the deck profile, please like, comment, and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. And I will see you all in the next video. Hopefully.